A homeless woman found a ring and returned it to the millionaire who had lost it. And when a limousine stopped near her shack the next day. Blanca loved reading since childhood. Books were always something magical for her. Opening them, she was instantly transported to an entirely different world. Whenever she was sad or someone hurt her, Blanca found solace in the company of her favorite characters. Fantasy stories about brave knights, beautiful princesses, and mysterious worlds immersed her in amazing adventures and made her dream. As the years went by, Blanca's passion for reading only grew. She spent hours in the school library, exploring shelves filled with books of all genres, from classic literature to science fiction and adventure novels. She couldn't live without the smell of old books and the rustle of pages under her fingers. Every morning, Blanca would make herself cocoa as soon as she woke up and sit on the veranda with a book. Her parents were still asleep, and this was a moment of silence and solitude that belonged only to her. Forgetting about everything else, Blanca would dive into the world of fantasies created by famous authors. Books were her best friends. They shared their wisdom with her and were always there to comfort or entertain her. One of Blanca's favorite genres was historical literature. She loved learning about the lives of people in different eras, their cultures, and traditions. Stories of great civilizations, wars, and discoveries captured her imagination and made her ponder how past events affect our present. Blanca was also passionate about poetry. Her heart would beat faster when she opened the books of famous poets and began reading their innermost thoughts. Every word seemed like a precious gem that needed to be carefully examined to understand its true meaning. As Blanca grew older, she decided to enroll in the philology faculty. The thought of being able to read all the time made her happy and inspired her. Blanca became one of the top students and graduated from university with honors. After that, she was immediately offered a job as an editor at a local magazine. Blanca gladly accepted. The salary wasn't very high, but she gained experience, and after 2 years, she moved to the capital and started working as an editor at a publishing house. Now, she was almost always surrounded by books. They were everywhere, at work, on walks in the park, on trips, and at home. In the studio Blanca rented, books not only stood on shelves, but also lay on windowsills, on cabinets, and even on the floor. Unlike the other girls from the publishing house, Blanca spent her evenings reading on a cozy sofa with a blanket and her favorite cocoa. But one day, her best friend Nina invited her to a club. A band that performs songs based on the poetry of famous poets will be playing there tonight. "I think you'll like it," Nina explained. Blanca happily agreed. She had been feeling lonely lately, and her friend's invitation came at just the right time. In the evening, Blanca dressed up, wearing a beautiful white dress embroidered with artificial pearls and high-heeled shoes that she had kept from her university graduation. She styled her hair beautifully and wore long earrings with precious stones and pearls. Looking at herself in the mirror, Blanca smiled at her reflection. The thought of having a pleasant time made her glow with joy. The club Nina invited her to was in the city center and was known for its cozy atmosphere and high-quality live music. Blanca called a taxi and met Nina at the entrance to the club. When her friend saw her, she was very surprised. "You look so beautiful, Blanca. Your outfit suits you so well. I think we should go out more often." Blanca smiled and thanked Nina. Together, they entered the club, where they were greeted by soft, dim lights and the quiet sounds of an acoustic guitar. Musicians were already preparing for their performance on stage, checking their instruments and tuning their microphones. "I'm so glad we came here," Blanca said quietly, looking around. "This place is just magical. It's so nice to be here." Nina smiled in response. "Yes, me too. I've heard that these musicians are incredibly talented. They know how to convey the emotion of poetry through music." The girls took a table near the stage and ordered non-alcoholic drinks. Blanca noticed a tall, handsome man nearby who was looking at her with interest. He was wearing a suit and a white shirt. Nina saw him too. "Blanca, look at how he's looking at you," she whispered to her friend. "Do you know him?" "No, I've never seen him before, Blanca replied, feeling embarrassed. Nina smiled. Then he must like you, she said. At that moment, the lights in the hall went out, and a young man with a neat beard stepped onto the stage. That's their vocalist, Nina whispered, and Blanca nodded, not taking her eyes off the stage. Good evening, friends, the young man greeted the audience. We're happy to see you here. Are you ready to dive into the enchanting world of poetry? The hall burst into applause. We've been inspired by famous world poets in our work, the young man continued. We hope you enjoy our interpretation of their masterpieces. The audience applauded again. The first chords of the guitar sounded, and the hall was filled with the magic of music. The vocalist began to sing a song based on the poetry of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and his voice touched the hearts of the listeners. The music played with each line of the poem, giving it new shades of meaning. Everything sounded so harmonious that Blanca closed her eyes with pleasure. She felt every word, every note with every cell of her body. This is just incredible. Nina whispered when the first song ended. How do they do it? It's true art. Blanca agreed. I feel every word. The evening continued, and the band performed song after song based on the poetry of different poets. Each composition was unique and left an unforgettable impression. When the concert ended, the hall erupted in applause. The musicians bowed to the audience and thanked everyone for the warm reception. Blanca was deeply moved and shaken by the performance, so when the lights came on, she didn't immediately realize where she was. Nina's eyes sparkled with tears. I need a minute to gather myself, she said. Blanca nodded in agreement, and at that moment, she felt someone's gaze on her. She looked up and saw the same man who had been sitting at the nearby table. He was smiling at her. I see you enjoyed the performance, he said softly. Blanca blushed and nodded. It was amazingly beautiful and unforgettable, she shared her impressions. I agree with you, the man replied. These guys are a real treasure. I try not to miss their performances, even if I'm abroad at the time. Blanca raised her eyebrows in surprise. By the way, my name is Raul, the man introduced himself. And you? Blanca, the girl replied and introduced Nina. Very nice to meet you, Raul said politely. Perhaps you would like to take a walk in the fresh air? Blanca looked at Nina in panic. Her friend discreetly winked at her and said, Unfortunately, I need to go home, but I think Blanca can keep you company. Blanca almost fainted upon hearing this. Why was Nina doing this? Great, Raul smiled. Then I'll just have a word with the vocalist and be right back. With these words, the man got up from the table and walked away. Taking advantage of the moment, Blanca looked at Nina indignantly. Why did you do that? I thought we were friends, she exclaimed. Nina just shook her head. You're so silly, Blanca. Can't you see how he looks at you? He likes you, not me. That's why I decided to leave you two alone. Blanca nodded shyly. But I don't know what to talk to him about, she complained. You'll figure it out, Nina said and, hugging Blanca, headed for the exit. Raul returned a couple of minutes later and, to Blanca's amazement, gave her a white rose. This flower suits your outfit very well, he said, looking at her intently. Blanca took the flower and brought it to her face. She was very pleased with the man's attention. The young people left the club and went for a walk downtown. The evening was simply splendid. It turned out that Raul was easy to talk to, and Blanca felt wonderful. The man also loved literature, history, and, of course, poetry. After the walk, Raul called a taxi and took Blanca home. She thanked him for the wonderful evening. I haven't had such a pleasant evening in a long time, the girl confessed. I think we should make this a tradition, Raul replied. He asked for Blanca's phone number and hugged her goodbye. Blanca returned home feeling happy and content. The next day, Raul invited Blanca to visit a literary museum, and the girl happily agreed. After the tour, they went to a restaurant for dinner. Blanca guessed that Raoul was doing quite well financially, but for her, it didn't matter. The young people started meeting